back to EdTech Connect, Innovators in Conversation, with a little bit of a crossover today into EdTech on the street in the city that never sleeps. What? I know, crazy. Anyways, we are outside the New York Public Library today. We are joined by Olivia and the co-founder of Careerspan.
Co-founder of Careerspan.
We have a great team today. I'm excited to jump into it.
Yeah.
Let's hear your introductions.
Yes, I'm Olivia. I work on the partnership side at Magic EdTech. And just to give a brief overview for our new listeners out there, with Magic EdTech, essentially we kind of do two big things. We help teams working in EdTech and education industry build and modernize platforms. And we also support with content development, everything from curriculum, courses, all the above. I think just what we've been working on lately, a lot of AI innovation and supporting teams really scale up and speed up their processes so that ultimately those learners in the classroom can have more access to educational products that are effective for them. So that's our little pitch and a little bit about us.
Hey everyone, my name is Vrijen. I am the CEO, co-founder of Careerspan. My co-founder and I started our careers as career coaches. We help folks get into great universities and then get great jobs, and along the way learned a huge amount about the value of supporting people through the career growth process and the importance of using self-reflection and all of these sort of tools to help people along the way. Built a great product to do that, are now giving that product out for free to communities and finding ways to get employers in touch with great talent.
Wow, which is great considering I know we're a little bit in a weird job hiring dynamic with everything going on with AI, the rise of maybe unemployed graduates, what this looks like. So we're going to get into that. We're going to touch on all of these subjects. We're going to talk about AI, obviously. Can't avoid that topic now these days. But before we get into the serious topics, we're going to have some fun. So let's start off with your spirit animals. Who would like to go? Your intuition, okay?
Is this Kiara's version of fun? I'm going to go with a black cat.
Okay.
It's spooky season. It's coming up.
That is on brand for Spooktober. Okay, I like it.
I'm going to go with a fox.
A fox?
Yeah.
And your reason?
I try to do sneaky stuff every so often. A little creativity never goes awry in the startup world.
Ew.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's a good one. I like it.
No good.
I love it. All right, next one is going to be what superhero you most identify with, because we are in the world of education, creating new careers, pathways, saving our students to make sure they're getting good jobs. What superheroes are you guys?
You know what? I'm gonna do a millennial throwback and say Captain Planet.
Oh my God.
Captain Planet, yeah.
I don't even think I know who that is.
Oh my God, that's crazy. That was a long time ago. Defender of the planet. Anyone? He's great. Look, it's no Superman. It's a climate reference. We have climate month. I thought I'd go for him.
That's good. All right, I'll have to check that one out. I'm not familiar.
I don't have one ready. I will admit I've never been a huge superhero movie person. When I was teaching, I did watch a bunch of the movies because my students kind of peer pressure me into it, which I appreciated. But I might go with like a Disney princess or something if I can. Okay. But I've always identified with Merida. She's the one from Brave. She just really goes after, what she wants. She doesn't let anyone get in her way. So that's my my movie reference.
Yeah.
Yeah, love that.
All right, perfect. And the last one, guys, because we are in New York City on the streets of the New York Public Library. What New York vibe are you? Are you a cockroach, a rat, a pigeon? This is on the New York Secret Story, so I'm giving them a little bit of a shout out to their content, but which part of New York are you guys?
You know what? I'm gonna go with something. I'm gonna be that warm gust of subway wind.
Oh, so none of the above.
None of the above. What? I thought this was like we have to pick from the list.
Hey,
I'm gonna go with like pigeon. I was trying to really channel my inner New Yorker. Like, what am I? Oh, in your face when you least expect it.
I do like that. I'll have to add that as one of the choices for the next one.
That's a unique one, and I can't say it's my favorite one, but I definitely know what you're talking about. Well, of the choices you gave, I'm gonna go with a pigeon, but like one of those pigeons that ends up like, crawling on someone's hand, like around the
Wow.
table. It's like pretty
The bold
fearless.
ones.
The ones that you can tell they've been around the block for a
Wow.
couple times.
That's okay. A very specific pigeon.
I know the pigeon you're talking about. Is it the one that plays chess with the dudes in Grand Central? Because Central Park.
Yeah. There's ones in Brian too. I think there's one huddling over there too.
Gotta watch out for those pigeon chess hustlers. They're the real ones to watch out.
The real ones. All right, guys, I love it. That was a little icebreaker, but now we're going to get really serious because we're here to talk about the future of education, workforce, EdTech, all of that good stuff. So our first question is, in today's job market, do traditional college degrees still carry the same weight, or are short courses and skill-based certificates becoming more valuable? And this idea of micro-credentialing is really where we're heading.
Sure. So I think that there's really like a two-part answer to this, and this is something that comes up all the time, but I think we can sort of look at two areas. So if you look at job postings, like Indeed has done some great studies, you can see that the requirements for having a four-year degree are actually going down. I think at this point it's now less than 1 in 5.
Wow.
And there's even states that are not requiring college educations for their state jobs. So Maryland, I think, was the first state. There's like 15 or 16 now. So the requirement of a four-year degree is no longer becoming as necessary. But then when you go and kind of looking at the credentialing side, there's also a lot of studies and just areas that have shown that these micro-credentials and credentialing programs are not as effective as they could be. I think that I believe it was Burning Glass did a study around this, that like 1 in 8 credentialing programs actually delivers value to the student or learner when it comes to like job promotions or actual salary growth.
Wow.
So, it's a tough thing to study because there's so many different ways that these people are, getting different, learning new skills, or kind of what their companies are requiring or offering. But I think it just speaks to the fact that these are not all created equal. And so there's a lot to say when it comes to the actual programs themselves, which I'm sure we'll get into, but it's a sticky question.
Yeah. Wow. Let's see that on. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that, the tack that we sort of take is there's the degree itself and then there's the thing that it represents, right? And we take on almost this like very like structural view of things where we go, okay, literally the mechanisms that we use to filter people, down to the filters on Workday or the filters on Greenhouse or whatever it is, they reward things that can be encapsulated in a drop down, right? Or things that can be encapsulated in an entry field. And I know that sounds like very simplistic, but in some ways that reflects the filtering mechanisms and the evaluation mechanisms we have. So you ask yourself, what's the point of a college degree?
Right.
Is it on some level, is it the 4 years of experience and all of that weight that carries? Or functionally, is it purely the fact that for some talent person out there, it's just easy to click a box that says require, I already have so many candidates, why not just throw in this requirement? The last thing I'll sort of say is there's a lot of frustration in the job market. There's a lot of frustration with job candidates.
Yeah.
I want to level with y'all. It is concerning and upsetting the degree to which the problems that you face are a function of just the fact that people are used to a certain type of tech, they're used to the resume, they're used to a certain way of looking at people, and they're not willing to look past that, right? Whether that is a micro-credential or whether that's a new form of assessment or whether that's a new way of measuring people, there's just a lot of like lack of readiness to make that change.
I think you guys both said there's a lot of good points there. I think it's this idea that it's been like this standard that we have to go to higher education and that, but then now we have this idea of micro-credentialing. And as Olivia mentioned, there's so much to navigate. Sometimes it doesn't even get justified in the worth for it. And where I would like to know from both of you in this is that there's this idea of AI fluency criteria to be fluent and competitive in today's job market. So is this approach to micro-credentialing the solution to potentially help make people more competitive in today's job market with AI fluency or experimenting into AI beyond just the criteria that we would have for the drop downs or in traditional education? I know it's a loaded question. I'm throwing it on.
Loaded
the
question.
spot,
I have a little bit of a hot take, but yeah.
Okay.
I'll wait.
We're here for
I'll let the hot take happen, although maybe I'll need to respond to it. But
Go ahead.
I think I would bring the question more like kind of broadly. I think that there are, we've heard the term and the concept of skills-based hiring a lot. And so I think that that's what we're getting towards when we think about our micro-credentials or credentialing programs going to be a solution here. I think that it really comes down to communication piece. So our employers and, those providing whatever the education is, whether it's through a traditional four-year program or otherwise, is there a communication between those teams? And I think that are those kind of industries, because the students need to walk away with skill sets that you were talking about, like, a job, someone on the HR team is looking for things they recognize. And so we need to have skills that they recognize too. So there are these skills taxonomies that we can use, but they're not necessarily being used consistently. And I don't know that students, when they are, let's say in their early 20s, are necessarily aware of what those skills are going to need to be. And so we do need to rely on the skill providers, the credentialing programs, whoever it is, to help those learners navigate the system of skills and provide a little bit more of that sort of handshake between the employer and the learner. And I do think that, with the rise of AI being this generalized sort of transformation of the workplace, there are new skills that are going to be more highly recognized and valued. And I think it is up to employers and it's a duty of employers to start being more transparent about what those are. And I don't know that they have the ability to name those. So we are going to look at kind of other, organizations and bodies that can help us regulate that or sort of provide transparency. But I think it's just all about handshake and connecting.
Yeah. I mean, the almost the deeply ironic thing is that, like, something like AI fluency is extremely hard to measure. Like, I know, folks that have been using AI for not very long, folks that have been sort of in it since the very beginning, basically no correlation with, like, how long you've been in it and how your mastery of it, in my opinion. Like, I think there are folks that sort of take to it a lot more intuitively, and the problem is that this is now going to be like the hard skill in some ways that is actually also a soft skill, because it is literally just prompting and communication and structured thinking. And so I don't know if I think that's sort of Careerspan's grievance with the broader market and the broader sort of system, is that when you reduce people to keywords and you only measure them by like a binary, is it present, is it not, you don't necessarily create the right incentives for folks to invest in themselves correctly, right? As an example, like, what would you ask the average person, hey, what would be better for you to like have a credential that said you knew AI, or for you to like actually know it really well and like really deeply, right? And everyone would say, yeah, well, probably it's better to know the thing deeply. But like, push comes to shove, what actually is going to make a difference to your getting hired, whether or not the product school certificate triggers something in the ATS,
Right.
so it's just it's a little bit of a challenge to like square that circle.
Yeah. Right. So then, what is the solution for this potentially in terms of how employees can keep learning the new skills or ramping up their AI fluency without slowing down their current work or their maybe career path when it comes to education?
So I think this may be a little bit of an idealistic take, but the way that I see it, right, is coming into work, contributing your talent, your skill, your ability. It's obviously you're doing a service for the company for a certain price, but I think the very best, most motivated talent, the most motivated people, they are obviously going to want more, and they deserve more. So how can we find ways to give people work that aligns with natural learning opportunities? Because I'm not going to sit here and pretend like everyone can do the Google, 1 in every 5 days is for your learning. Like, very cool. Google had the kind of culture briefly that could support that, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. I think for the rest of us folks, it's more about, hey, if you're going to use Excel, let me invest some amount of time and energy and give you that space and freedom to learn that tool and learn the AI-enabled version of that tool that we both benefit, right? You have been upskilled and you're using something in your daily flows that makes your life easier and better.
Yeah.
I, as the employer, benefit from having supported that, because now you're more productive, right? It's a great trade, and it's a great way to bootstrap up career-wise in a way that is completely aligned with the interests of the employer.
Right. And maybe for Olivia, before, because you were talking a lot more about from the career side and where Careerspan is really going to help with this, maybe giving more context than just looking at what's on the resume and being to a drop down. Could you, Olivia, speak more towards the side of the responsibility of education? Because Magic EdTech does a lot of upskilling with workforce. We're building out those products at industry for us. Is it the responsibility then of just companies like us building the solutions to make sure that it's an accurate representation of what people need? Or is it the educators? Is it both? What do you think?
I think going back to what I was sort of sharing earlier, that there is a need for a handshake between employers and whoever is providing that education. And so when that's thinking about, those who are just entering the workforce. But of course, we have an aging population that is working for longer. And so, everyone likes to say they're a lifelong learner, but how is that happening, right? And so I think that, one area that I think about for employees and employers is really that it needs to be part of the culture, similar to what you were sharing. Like, it is about creating a culture that promotes continuous learning. So then, then we look at where those employees can go. And I don't know that, sometimes it is outside, sometimes it's room for experimentation. Sometimes it's also, employees that can advocate for L&D budgets. And then I think where we then can turn to the education providers, whether that's product schools, those kinds of, certification programs. How are they making it easier for employees to actually request and promote and actually, get that access to their programs? And that's, again, I think where we bring in those skills. So how are the skill certification programs, or how are the certification programs sort of advertising and classifying their skills that the students are going to gain, the learners would gain so clearly, so that an employer will then, whether it's fund that program or create space and time. I then think you get into the culture piece that, I agree that not everyone can do the 20% a day, but it's true that, in order, it's kind of like teach a man to fish the idea, right? Like, if employers believe in that mindset, an employee taking an hour or two each week to do these credentialing programs and then applying it immediately is going to be effective for their own productivity. And so there's a lot that can be gained there.
Right. And I would also say, from an objective good standpoint, you want a culture of learning, right? Like, we're in EdTech because we're all believers in the power of learning and what that does for an individual, what that does for a team. And to the extent that, you can I think you can walk into certain rooms or organizations or companies, and you can just tell, are the folks here really curious, right? Are they asking deep, difficult questions, right? I'm not saying everything, necessarily all deep questions are created equal. You could be in B2B SaaS working in billing, and more power to you, but you could still be a curious person, right?
Yeah.
You can still cultivate a environment where, to your point, employees do feel like that's such a worthwhile, they see that you as the employer truly get that them getting better and them getting learning more is beneficial to you. And that's when they sort of feel comfortable and empowered to sort of go, okay, you know what, this person isn't just doing it as a charity thing or whatever. It's it's actually in their interest. I feel liberated to. It's almost like when PTO is not just some sort of reverse psychological attack by the company. It's literally just, hey, when you need time, take time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess where I'm now curious, and to go on to the next question, is because you're talking about this culture of learning, people looking for opportunities to grow, right? And whether that's in education, their current job, trying to advance to the next one. So then how do we create these opportunities? How do we create that curiosity for people to want to take that initiative and not just think, oh, I need to do this because it's mandated for that job, mandated by my employer, etc.
Yeah, I think there's two ways I think about this. I do think one is, you brought up the word curiosity. I think that giving employees the space to explore different programs, I think there can be, a lot of sources will offer a whole suite of, courses someone can take. And so maybe there's, recommendations, but giving an employee the opportunity, it's not necessarily mandated, but maybe it's more so, everyone has access to this platform. And then there are, like leaderboards, like things like that, where it's super encouraged, but it's not, here is the date at which you need to complete your program. I don't think anyone wants more emails about
More deadlines.
more deadlines, nagging. It's not going to feel like it's something that's empowering or that can be, because there's no autonomy there. That's kind of a basics of, creating freedom and someone and authority in someone's own role.
Yeah.
So that's one piece. And then I do think that, there's another side of it that's also just making these programs accessible when it comes to like people's schedules. So having these like online programs are great. You complete them at your own pace. Like I recently signed up for a Maven program that has live sessions, but you can also do them on your own time. And I'm traveling, and so I'll go to 3 of the sessions when I can, but then one of them I won't. Like there's that flexibility. I personally know I love a cohort, so I'm excited about that element, but just flexibility. There's also a lot of organizations that create like super small like micro learning bursts, and so there's like TikTok style learning that some programs are doing, and so I think that there's just ways like that these different programs can be created so that people are excited about the learning that they can do and also motivated to kind of seek out what skill sets and what skill sets they want to beef up on.
Okay.
I think if you really examine what holds a lot of people back, and I maybe I'll speak purely for myself. I had a moment recently where I came across the software that's made it easier to vibe code, essentially, just for some of the use cases that I've had. And it's not something I've done historically very much of. And as someone that's always teetered on the edge of like technical, like I know enough to be dangerous, but not enough to like actually code myself out of a cardboard box. I always felt like there was this gap, and a lot of my hesitation around engaging with tech or engaging with technical things came from this gap of like, I don't know enough, or it's going to be hard, or it's going to be difficult, and I think that so much of life is just hard and discouraging that it's sort of natural to feel that way, especially with something like AI, especially if you already a little insecure about your job, already feel like AI is coming for you, is about to strip your agency. These are not positive circumstances in which to encourage people to like pick up this tool, right? Yeah. And so I think it's also incumbent upon employers, I think the government absolutely, to foster more psychological safety amongst folks and say, hey, you're learning how to use AI is not you sort of expediting your way out of yourself out of a job, nor is it this like big thing. Like it can actually be very empowering. It can actually create like this very high agency feeling that I think AI is sort of in a unique position to deliver that kind of like learning in a way that historically you haven't just been able to become an expert in something in quite the same way. I know there are limitations, but
yeah. And I actually wanted to just add, I think that when we think about it, you brought up sort of this, we're in a space where there is so much more opportunity, but I think that we can bring this back to K-12. And so if you're going to raise students that eventually become actual lifelong learners, when everything's a requirement, when they're just doing work to fulfill a deadline or get it in their grade book, there's not a lot of intrinsic motivation. And so I work with school systems that used a lot of extrinsic motivation, where then students were like asking what kind of prize they got for doing their SAT, right? Like that's something that's supposed to help them in their own futures, but there's the reward systems were not set up for them to recognize that intrinsic motivation. So I think that's just something that we definitely want to be thinking about and kind of bringing it all the way back into K-12. What kind of learners are we trying to raise that are going to actually seek out that program and kind of upskill themselves? And kind of where is that psychological safety? I love that you use that word. How is that being created for them in the K-12 environment so they're, building that resilience and that skill to move forward?
Right. I mean, I think here's the thing, right? Here's that hot take I promised you. Here's the hot take I promised you, right? Why does internal talent mobility software suck? Broad statement. Why? Like on a deeply like philosophical level, why? It's because of the simple concept of the consent of the governed, right? You want employees know that 9 times out of 10, when you're trying to roll out some of these tools, the manager is trying to make themselves look better, or the company is just trying to track some bullshit productivity thing for the board, or it's not coming from a place of truly helping the employee. And you can tell. And you can tell when tools have been designed. My favorite example of this is offboarding. You should hear some of the freaking horror stories that I've heard about the kind of high quality offboarding support that's offered by, even some of the biggest companies, right? So what does it boil down to? Exactly as you said, it is harder. It involves more of a compromise on what you as the employer, you as the parent or whatever want, but it is far healthier and far more productive to meet someone halfway and say, okay, what are your learning goals? What are the things that are going to energize you? Let me meet you halfway, and we can figure out a way to sort of let that be the spark that you can then sort of like hone in other areas.
Yeah, I really like it with this idea of, again, we're talking about like AI a lot. You have to remember there's humans with it, and then I feel like we need to re-emphasize that point when it comes to learning in general, as you both are speaking to, and that people create things because that's what their perspective is that they need to learn, but is it truly what that person's interested in? Maybe what's geared to their skill set and how they best learn? Perhaps not. So and I agree with you in that some companies' internal learning systems, because some of my startups, we worked at building one, and I was looking at this and I was like, I wouldn't even use this. Why are we giving it to the employees, guys?
There you go.
So I totally agree with that. I love the hot take. Everyone knows I love the hot takes. So thank you for dropping that, Mike.
Love it. Yeah. Anything to add?
I was sorry, or I can add
the hot take. I'll see if
I'll take the heat from the internal talent mobility nerds out there.
That's okay, but before we close out, I want to end this on a more positive note, right? Because I feel like we've given a little bit of negative in terms of maybe where the future is heading, and
I don't think it's negative though. I think it's an opportunity. Like,
okay, that's
if those systems suck, then clearly there's room for someone to come in and create something that works. So and we can help you build it.
Yeah, and we can help you today. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Hey, it's a hectic time.
Yeah.
It's a stressful time.
Mm-hmm.
But all times with great opportunity come with a lot of upheaval, right? And I think that I think there's a lot of room for personal opportunity for any given person. I think there are a lot of great questions to be asked about how that plays out for us as a society as a whole in the long run. But I think for individuals, if you are a motivated talent professional, you want to get ahead in your field, never been a better time to slingshot forward with the help of the right tools.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's positive. Opportunities for growth, as Olivia mentioned. So I love it. Before we close out, would you guys like to add any other notes, call outs, hot takes, famous quotes, anything?
Ooh. This is probably the part where I should plug the company. Check out Careerspan. Get me on LinkedIn. I would love for you to check out our tool. But no, the quote will be for the employers, right? To sort of reinforce the point that Olivia so astutely made, which is like, if you want to, I'm going to butcher the original quote, but it's like, if you want to set sail, don't teach people how to assemble a ship, like make them fall in love with the sea, right? Ooh. So what is it that you're doing? Are you teaching someone a set of like AI skills? Or are you trying to get them to fall in love with a particular way of approaching problem solving? I think that is sort of the goal. And that's what all of you should aim to do.
I love that one. Olivia?
I'll leave you guys the quote, but this is actually one that I found a couple months back, maybe at this point. I might butcher it a little, but if anyone listens to Dochi out there, probably a lot of fans, she had a great quote from an interview that I cannot stop thinking about, where she basically said, like, I'm allowed to be bad at something the first time I try. And so clearly I think with that kind of mindset, we can, anyone out there can achieve awesome things. She's an innovator, and she's really, changing up the music industry. And I think that with kind of instilling that psychological safety, to bring it back to that in that K-12 space or in the, employee workforce space, I think that that's really where we can see people really shine.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I love it. Two amazing quotes. I feel like that's a great way to end off the session. So thank you so much, both of you, for joining me in front of the New York Public Library with all of the sirens going on. So I hope you guys can hear us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And remember to tune into our next episode and to stay curious. Bye, guys.